So I'll start with Abhimanyu and then I'll come to Greg. What was your favorite part of the Australia versus India series?
Rishabh Pant's comeback, to be honest, and the way we've nurtured our newcomers is what I like the most. We were battered with racist abuse, injuries, and bodyline bowling in the last innings that we saw of the last Test match. But still, we gave them a reply with the bat, and we still gave them an answer that we are not going to give up. We've come there to win, and we retained the series even without Virat Kohli and a few of our top line bowlers missing out due to injury.
And what about you, Greg? Who was your standout performer for this series, India or Aussie?
Well, obviously, being as an Englishman, it was nice to see the Indians get one over on Australia, especially in their own backyard at the Gabba. But no, like you said, I think the way India came back after being bowled out for 36 in that first test and Kohli flying home, the writing was really on the wall for them. There was a lot of pundits here saying, "Oh, well, this will be it. This is 4-0, easy. Kind of, you can play the Australian B team and still get past them." But the way the bowling attack stood up, I think the inclusion of Siraj and Thakur only having played, I think, his second test, and Natarajan joining for the last one as well, really showed like what a team effort it was, and more than just the 11 players that are on the field, but the whole touring squad, especially in the bio bubbles, etc., that we're seeing these days. The way it all came together for them, and Pant managed to finish it off on the last day in what was a thrilling final match of what was a great series, both in the white ball stuff and the 5 days. So, yeah, really enjoyable to watch here.
Yeah, I don't think anybody at the start of the series would have, after Kohli went back and India was 36 all out, would have said anything but 4-0. I think Sunil Gavaskar was the only one who said India will go on to win 2-1. He was the only pundit who said that they would win 2-1.
Everyone else was after that.
I don't think anybody else said that. But it was, for me personally, it was great to see senior players like Rahane and Pujara stand up and be counted. I think if Rahane didn't get that 100 the first innings after Kohli left at batting at 4, because there was a huge debate in India who'd bat at 4 now that Kohli's gone. Will Gill bat at 4 and they'll play someone, will Gill bat at 4 and they'll play KL Rahul as an opener who got injured eventually. But for me, that was the best part, to see the senior players take responsibility. And like you said, the way Siraj and Rishabh Pant took responsibility and took their chances. And even the young players like Shardul Thakur, Washington Sundar, I think that's the best part about this series. And I think this is the strongest Indian contingent we've had in a long while, personally, considering the squad depth. Because and I think this series went on to prove that you can have players playing in the IPL who can successfully transition their career into the Test arena.
It was always just that if you played in the IPL, that doesn't guarantee you a side in the international side, doesn't guarantee your place there, because it used to be like we were always called home track bullies. Indian batsmen and Indian bowlers are called that, and now we are changing that perspective and getting a new version of the Indian cricket team to compete. Let's see, maybe against England too.
Yeah, Greg, from an England perspective, how impressed are you by the fast bowling contingent? Because India are not known for their fast bowling depth or even their fast bowlers, but this time around we've got 6-7 fast bowlers who can just come in and bowl 140 plus and take wickets. So from an English perspective, what do you feel?
No, for sure. I mean, it's probably for the last 3 or 4 years now that India have had a very good fast bowling attack. Obviously, the likes of Bumrah, Ishant Sharma, Mohammad Shami, those three are kind of really at the top of the Indian fast bowling attack. But yeah, like you say, we're coming through from the IPL, kind of still having that depth and reserve with those fast bowlers being able to come in and still bowl at 140 clicks is really impressive to see.
Yeah, I think for me, I saw the videos. I don't know if you got a chance to see them, Greg, about players returning, and Siraj's father died during the tour. I think at the start of the tour, and he went straight to pay his respects to his father. And then when Natarajan came home, he's from a small village in south of India. And he basically was brought home on a horse with like the entire village around him. So how much it means to these players to be representing the country, and how much love the sport has, how much love's been brought back to the sport after I felt personally over the last 5 years, the interest was dropping, especially in Test cricket. You see stadiums are empty. Of course, there won't be crowds for the India-England series, but I thought if there was fans allowed, if it was normal circumstances, I think the stadiums would have been sold out.
Yeah, probably.
And coming to the England, so obviously now coming towards the India versus England series, which is why we're here. England are currently fourth in the ICC Test Championship, and India's first now. So I'll start with you, Greg. How important is this series for you?
Well, I think it's a massive series for both sides. Obviously, there's the Test Championship to play for, more for India than England. I think Australia will be watching on with a keen eye. Obviously, they're sat in third now. But yeah, obviously we play India 9 times this year before the Ashes series, which I feel everyone's kind of looking towards the Ashes as the biggest one for England. But there's 9 huge Test matches against one of the best sides in the world to come. I think it will be a real challenge for us. I don't want to give out too many score predictions here because you can easily look very silly. But I think it will be very tough for us to get 1 on the board, never mind a series win. But yeah, very apprehensive from an English point of view. But no, it will be really good to see how this kind of new look England side that we've got, not new look, but growing, certainly a very green side, comes together against one of the best teams in their own backyard.
And how good and how much of an impact will the returning Ben Stokes and Jofra Archer have in the squad?
Well, I think they'll be huge, won't they? You've seen how well they've gone in the IPL. Obviously, they're very popular figures in India. So they will definitely bring some confidence, and Stokes is such a great leader and inspires the rest of his team with the way he goes about his training, the way he applies himself on the pitch. And that's what it's going to take, is application. When you go to India, you need players to back time. You need players to stand up with the ball when nothing's happening. That's what Stokes is kind of really well renowned for. And I think it will be, there will be times where the chips are down and you need someone to get behind. And I think Stokes will be able to take that role with bat or ball. And as you say, Archer coming back, bowling that, it's kind of got that extra 5-10 kilometres an hour on the rest of them, is what you will need in India. Obviously, times have changed and we're not going to India and we're not going to see real big spinning pitches as much as we used to do. Now that India have obviously got this great fast bowling attack, the pitches will be slightly more prepared towards some quick bowling. I'm not saying it will be a green seamer like you would get up north in England, but there will definitely be something in it for the seamers, so they can expose the likes of Sharma and Bumrah on their own pitches. But I'll be interested to see what you guys are thinking of.
Yeah, personally, I think just watching the second test now, and obviously the first test before this in Sri Lanka, it was interesting because I was watching this series knowing that England are coming to India after the Sri Lanka series, and I felt that this series will kind of help them get used to those Asian conditions,
it's like a warm-up
continental conditions.
Right.
And my biggest thing I wanted to watch out was for Anderson and Broad, and to be fair, they've done really well. It's always been a criticism of Anderson around the world that he doesn't do well in Asian conditions, but he took a 5 for today, I think, and Broad did really well the last match, but they've not been playing together. And the question I wanted to ask you, and from an Indian perspective, this comes as a bonus if both of them don't play together, is it the end for the combination of Broad and Anderson?
Well, I'm not going to sit here and say it's the end of Broad and Anderson, because there's many people have done that in the last few years, and look where they are today. But yeah, I can't see them both playing together in India, especially with Archer coming back. As long as he's fit and ready to go, I think the first test will be Archer and Broad or Anderson. But no, it has been great to see that they've still got the skills and the tricks to get wickets on these flatter surfaces. I know the first pitch at Galle was slightly more conducive to a bit of seam, but having watched the first day and a half from the second test, it does look pretty flat. And like you say, for Anderson to get 6 wickets shows he still has got it and can do it in Asia. So it will be interesting to see how he goes. at Chennai in the first test if he gets the nod ahead of Broad.
Yeah.
And from an Indian perspective, Abhimanyu, how good is it to have Ishant Sharma, the leader of the attack, 97 plus test matches back in the
Yeah.
squad?
He definitely adds some experience to the side. We had some good bowlers against Australia after missing out, after like a few players ruled out because of the injury. But still, if you see Ishant Sharma coming in, gives a lot more experience. If there is a big partnership, he's the one that can help break that and get India back into rhythm. But talking about the pitch that we were talking about, the Chennai pitch, I would say usually that pitch is not very grassy and has like a pace and bounce kind of a structure for the first 3 days. But in the last 2 days, we've always seen the spinners spinners doing a lot more. And that's what happened when India faced England last time at the Chennai ground.
2017?
2016-2017 series. That was the last match that was played in Chennai, the last test match. Ravindra Jadeja got a 7-4 in the second innings for India. So that's what at the last day spinners could do well for India.
Yeah, so from a personal standpoint, I'm really happy Ishant Sharma's back because I feel he's been having his best bowling in the last 3 years. I think he's really come of age, and if you see his bowling average in the first 8 years of his career compared to the last 3 or 4, it's massively dropped. And it's in the low 20s now, and whereas it was in the early 30s at the start of
30s, or sometimes even for some series it was even reaching 40s or something. It's really bad.
So I'm really glad Ishant Sharma's back. It'll be interesting to see how Bumrah fares. This is his first test match in India. He's played 17 test matches and never played in India. I think that must be some kind of record.
I looked that up this morning and just seen that was his first time. I was trying to see what he averaged at home and how he went at home, but to see that he's never actually played a home test series, great for him. Shame there'll be no crowding.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be looking at him with a keen eye because obviously bowling outside India, bowling outside Asia actually, you get some help off the pitch, but in India you don't get as much of the surface, so you have to bend your back a little bit more. So it'll be interesting to see how Bumrah with his technique of bowling, how he adapts to the Indian conditions and how well he fares in these conditions. As much as I am looking forward to seeing Broad and Anderson, see how they do in Indian conditions, I think it's the same for me with Bumrah personally. But a concern England have had in the England-Sri Lanka series so far is the opening partnerships. And it's not been doing well. Is that something you're concerned about? And Rory Burns returning to the squad, is that adding some value to your series against India?
I think it will. He's obviously played just over 20 tests now, so he has got a bit more experience than Crawley and obviously Sibley, who he will open with in the first test. I think it will be interesting to see how he goes. Obviously, there's a lot of talk about Ashwin bowling to left-handers, but no, he's definitely a very gritty player. He showed that in the Ashes in 2019, that he's not afraid of the fight and will get stuck in. But I think there will be questions about obviously the inexperience at the top of the order, and then if they do start to wobble, do we bring someone else in? Does someone else play? Where do we go from there? But like I said earlier on, it is a very green England team that are still learning, and I still think the selectors don't 100% know what their best side is. But I think Burns and Sibley at the top of the order is hopefully the way forward for the next 4, 5, 6 years. But we could see that if they do struggle against this good Indian attack, that there will be changes for the third and fourth test. So I think it's definitely a talking point that hopefully the lads get stuck in. And
does it get tricky because of the Ashes at the end of the year? So you ideally want to figure out your opening combination early on in the season, try and stick with them through the 17 tests throughout the year. Is that the aim I think the England team management should be going in with?
Yeah, like I say, I think everyone, well, certainly from an English point of view, the Ashes is kind of the big one, no disrespect to the Indians. But yeah, they've got obviously 9 test matches before they go to Australia to kind of see what can we do. Is this going to work? So I hope they stick with it because I quite like Burns and Sibley at the top. I think Sibley's taken a lot of flack for kind of his slow rate and his slow batting. But as you you can't make runs in the changing room. So you've got to have someone at the top there that is going to solidify and set a platform for the likes of Root, whether it's Lawrence or Pope, Stokes, the Butler, the stroke makers to come in towards the end. And when the bowling side is already slightly demoralised and tired after a long 100, 110 overs in the field, to really make hay and set up those big scores that we were seeing in 2009, 2010 with the likes of Trott, Cook and Strauss at the top, and really set a platform to score 600, 650, which is what you need in these Indian conditions. So yeah, like you say, I think it is they're trying to find the correct opening partnership and the top three or top four ahead of Australia. But yeah, so fingers crossed they hit the jackpot first time.
You know, like you mentioned, it's funny you say that Sibley's been getting criticized for slow batting rate. It's something we saw in the Australia versus India series with Pujara. At the start of the series, when he wasn't getting runs, people were like, okay, he faces 80 balls but scores like 10 runs and gets out. What's the point? But then when you got to the fourth test and you saw him getting 50 in about 190 balls, people started applauding him, saying, oh, he took out the energy from the bowlers. So the batsman who came on later could take advantage of the tired bowlers. And I think that really helped India finally realize the value of a Pujara in the team alongside a Virat Kohli or a Rishabh Pant who score quick runs. So I think every team does need a batsman who can just play time rather than make strokes, because end of the day, Test cricket is about playing time, isn't it?
Yeah.
And when it comes to India, I think similar to England, we were struggling with the opening combination. We started with Prithvi Shaw and Mayank Agarwal, and we ended the tour with Shubman Gill and Rohit Sharma. So, Abhimanyu, do you think that India's finally found a long-term opening pair in Rohit Sharma and Shubman Gill?
I would say Shubman Gill is definitely a long-term opening person who will be there for a few more years to come. But I doubt Rohit Sharma is going to stick around for a few more years. They have to look at other options too, because Rohit Sharma is 32, 33 maybe now, and there is a time phase to a cricketer, right? So he is in good touch right now. Maybe 2-3 years down the line, he's not the same batsman he is currently.
So then would you look to, after the ICC World Test Championship is done, and we don't know if there'll be a second edition, because at this point we've been reading that there won't be, but if there is a second edition, which would probably, I assume, will be after another 2-year cycle, would you look at dropping Rohit Sharma from the test team and try and blood a new youngster like Abhimanyu Ishwaran, who's been added to the reserve squad, who I'm really happy for?
Finally, he's been given a chance, and he's done very well at the Ranji level. And I feel this is the time when, so Ranji Trophy has been cancelled for this year, but from next year itself, they need to look at players who can take up that opening spot or a middle order spot, because there are a few positions which 3-4 years down the line, India may struggle to find a replacement for. Pujara, even for per se, Ajinkya Rahane, Kohli. So it's going to change. There's a phase of transition that's going to come 3-4 years down the line. We need to start preparing for that, like how I feel Australia has done. They have gotten a few more players like Cameron Green, Labuschagne, and Will Pukowski as well. So that's the kind of change that we need, and that's what we should look out for.
I think I agree with you, because I was watching one of the after the first test, when obviously everyone was going mental about India getting 36 all out and Kohli going home. There was always talk about how India has groomed so many fast bowlers, because Virat Kohli always has spoken about the requirement, the need for fast bowlers. So he groomed young fast bowlers, but India hasn't groomed any batsmen. When Dravid, Tendulkar, Ganguly, Lakshman were retiring, we always knew that there's an Ajinkya Rahane, Pujara, and Kohli coming through. We always knew these three will come through. So the fact that India, you can't pinpoint at a player in the Ranji Trophy or the domestic circuit who you can look at and say, yeah, this is the guy who's going to come through. People say KL Rahul, but he's already 28. So I don't see him as a long-term.
Well, at the test level, that as much as he has done at the white ball sector, he's not done too much.
But I think we need to groom some youngsters coming through. Another person who's been dropped, surprisingly, and not surprisingly, to be honest. I mean, he's a youngster, and I think he'll go back and learn, is Prithvi Shaw. He's not even in the reserve squad. How much of an impact do you think that will have on his confidence? And he was supposed to be this wonder kid, right? And from an English perspective as well, Greg, what do you guys think of Prithvi Shaw and him not being in the squad?
I think for a lot of people, they might not have seen too much of Prithvi Shaw. I've kind of kept tabs on the battle between Shaw and Shubman. Obviously, two that came through the under-19 team in 2018, was it? So yeah, I think English people probably haven't seen too much of him. They'll have seen a bit of him in the IPL this year. Obviously, didn't go too well for Delhi. So yeah, I'm not sure they've seen too much of him. But like you say, I think he will go away, learn. He's obviously a very talented young man. I've seen the odd rumouring of his off-field problems. And did he get 100 on debut in the West Indies?
He got 100.
So he's obviously got a lot of talent. It just maybe that when he gets to the test level, there's a couple of things with his technique that haven't kind of worked for him, and he's been exposed against the Australian quicks, which he won't be the first one and certainly won't be the last man to struggle down under in Australia. So yeah, hopefully for him he goes away, whether it's play some white ball stuff this year, or has to wait till the Ranji comes around next year to apply himself and get back in contention. But yeah, I think he definitely could be someone in the next 3, 4, 5 years. Like you say, if Rohit steps away in 3 or 4 years' time, for someone to come in and fill that void, hopefully when Shubman Gill's well established with 10 or 12 test hundreds. So
I really hope Gill gets 4 of those hundreds against England this series.
What do you mean 4? He'll get 9.
But he has a big weakness, I would say, Shubman Gill, which England bowlers can exploit, and especially James Anderson. The outside off dismissals that he's been part of in the Australian series, that's what they've taken advantage of. You see, majority of his dismissals have been through when the ball has been an outswinger and he's went on to nick it to the slips, even to a spin bowler. When the ball's being bowled outside from the stump,
he's
outside
away
off.
from his body. That's why.
Yes, and that's similar to what Virat Kohli was facing against England in 2014.
If you compare him to Virat Kohli, he'll be all right then, won't he?
Let's see if he gets back from it.
Talking about Virat Kohli though, he's back. He's back after his 3-match leave. How scared are you, Greg? And how happy are you, Abhimanyu?
Extremely happy.
Well, he's the king, isn't he? I mean, there's a lot of people. There's obviously a big debate at the moment between who's the best in the world, Williamson, Smith, or Kohli, and Root used to be in that category as well. But for me personally, there's no one that I wake up in the morning and look at ESPN Crick Info and check and see who's playing. And if Kohli's batting, it's straight downstairs and in to watch. So yeah, he is a really, really talented player, and he's obviously had 3 games off through the birth of his child, and now he'll be refreshed and ready to go. And he averages something ridiculous like 68 at home, and I think it's 70 against England in India. So I'm sure he'll be looking forward to tucking into some of the English bowling. But no, he's going to be obviously a massive part of this series, as he is always. But yeah, I'm sure you guys will be delighted to have him back in the middle order.
Yeah. Personally, I think it's great to have him back in the middle order. But also, while we've been while he's been away at the Australia versus India series, Rahane took over as captain, and I know that in India there's a lot of clamor about him giving up his captaincy and focusing on his batting, which I think is extremely stupid because he's built this team. Rahane is just taking it over. Of course, Rahane did some good things, which I think Kohli is smart enough to incorporate in his leadership style. And I'm sure he's the one to take this team forward because he's built this team from scratch. This is his side. And for people to even suggest that in Test match cricket, Rahane should take over, to me is funny. But I understand when the white ball comparison comes in with Rohit Sharma, because Rohit Sharma's record as captain is exemplary, and I know so is Rahane's, but Rahane is nowhere near as good a captain as Virat Kohli, in my opinion. What do you think?
Right. You're right, because we've had that talk earlier on. Always, it's been, and whenever Virat Kohli has failed, there has always been talk of him being replaced as captain. When he eventually replaced Dhoni as captain, he had a tough phase, and that's also where people were criticizing him that he's that kind of player. He's very rash.
Aggressive, that's the word they use.
Yeah, he's too aggressive. And Rahane looked like a very calm, composed person who was listening to a lot of his team's inputs. Not saying Virat doesn't, but Virat could definitely learn from it. And this Virat, when he is captaining the side and he's going to bat, that's a different kind of Virat than when he's not the captain. We've not seen a lot of that. But when he's the captain, he has a certain kind of responsibility on his shoulder that he needs to score runs, he needs to help his team win, because otherwise he's going to be the one that's going to be criticized.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting to see the battle of Joe Root and Virat Kohli, because like you said, Root's back in form now. He's got a double hundred. And I've always considered him up there with the Williamsons and the Smiths and the Kohlis. So it'll be interesting to see how Root fares in India. Yeah, great track to bat on in India. So, and Root's good with spin as well, I think, isn't he? He's really good with against spin bowling. So it'll be good to see that battle. One player who, though, from England who will be going back, who I always rate very highly, is Josh Butler. He'll be going back after the first test. So, and Ben Foakes will be taking over. So I just wanted to understand from you, Greg, how big a miss will Butler be, and tell us a bit about Ben Foakes, because we have not seen that much of him.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if I come to Butler first, obviously he's going to play the first test and then head home, which I can only imagine is because of the whole bubbles and spending some time at home with his family. Because I think if you look at the schedule, he could be there for 4 tests and then the ODIs, then the T20s, and then you're straight into the IPL. Yeah. And then he would be sticking around for the IPL, one imagines, afterwards. So yeah, that will be a huge miss. I think his keeping has obviously been under the microscope the last few matches, which I think he's probably the third best keeper that England have got, behind Bairstow and Foakes, as you say. But no, I think his leadership on the field, there are a lot of rumours that if we were to take the captaincy off Root to let him concentrate on his batting, like you say with Kohli, that it would be Butler that would take over. So I think he will be missed on and off the field. And obviously he has got this X factor ability down the order to change a match in a session. So will be a huge miss for the second and third tests. And like I say, Foakes is likely to come in and keep probably for the second one. Yeah, Ben Foakes he's played I think 3 or 4 test matches. He played in Sri Lanka last time we were there in 2018. Did really well on that tour. And then has kind of never been seen since. He's carried drinks in 2019, carried drinks all through the bubble last year against the West Indies and the Pakistan series. And he's obviously in Sri Lanka again this time, sat on the side watching. But no, very accomplished gloveman, averages about mid-40s, 50s, I think, in the county championship here in England. And it's just been one of these, there's kind of one for every generation in England. The wicket keepers that seem to miss out. There's James Foster, obviously missed out I think he only played 3 or 4 test matches in his career, but he couldn't get a look in behind Pryor and Jones. So no, it will be good to see him get a go on the big stage, but I think it's Butler's slot for now, and obviously he's being rested for the second, third and fourth test, so I think he will just slot back in when India come to England in the summer.
Yeah, if he does well as a wicketkeeper and batsman, Ben Foakes, then will England maybe start to look as Josh Butler the batsman like they have done with Bairstow?
Yes and no. I think it might struggle to find a spot for both of them in the team. I think we're going to stick with Ollie Pope when he comes back from his shoulder injury. And obviously Dan Lawrence has looked very good in his first test here in Sri Lanka. So I think it's pretty busy in the middle. But there is talk of kind of Pope batting at 5 or 6 and then moving up to 3 to take that spot in a couple of years' time. So I think, as we were saying earlier, it is going to depend on what they can sort out at the top of the order. There may be a spot at 3 if Crawley struggles, or if one of Burns and Sibley struggles and Crawley can open with the other one. But no, I think it is looking pretty jam-packed in the middle, especially with Stokes coming back, because he's going to bat at likely 6, I would have said, if he's bowling as well. But yeah, I think it will be an option if they can try and squeeze them both in. But I do feel for Foakes that he's just kind of being called up as and when the top guys need a rest. Yeah.
So is it a problem of many to have, which is a good thing, is it a good problem of many to have right now with the middle order, especially with England?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously, Stokes missing the Sri Lanka series kind of does expose the kind of the weakness that there is without him. But yeah, obviously Butler's a very talented player. Pope and Lawrence are two young guns that have played a lot of Lions cricket and have done very well in the county championship circuit. So yeah, definitely is a nice problem to have. But like I say, I just do feel sorry for folks because his glovemanship is kind of up there with the best in the world. But he's not getting that go on the international stage. Maybe it's because he's not as dynamic and doesn't play the white ball stuff. Obviously, Butler is a bit of a freak when it comes to T20s and one-day internationals. So he's kind of second or third in the pecking order all the time.
Yeah.
But I think it'll be interesting for you guys to have a look at him.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to it because I've heard, obviously living in England, I've heard so much about his keeping, especially that he is by far the best gloveman around in England. I kind of compare him to Riddhiman Saha, who's always been known to be the best wicketkeeper in India, but never got a look in ahead of Dhoni. And now there's always a battle between him and Pant who plays. But I think the fact that Pant's a better batsman, similar to where Butler's probably a better batsman than Ben Foakes, puts him slightly ahead in the pecking order. But, you mentioned Dan Lawrence and Ollie Pope. Now, obviously, Ollie Pope was injured for the Sri Lanka series with a shoulder injury. And Dan Lawrence came in, took his chance with both hands, got a 70-odd on debut. Away from home in Asian conditions, how good will that be for his confidence heading into the India series?
Yeah, like you say, I think it'll be huge. I think there was a comparison that I think Joe Root got 73 on his first innings in an England shirt in India. So in tough Asian conditions. So I think that will be a great start for his career. Obviously, I was impressed with that, but I thought his second innings knock was probably just as valuable, if not better, than the first one. So we were only chasing, I think, 74 or something, but he came in when we were 3 down for 15. Root had just been run out. And it was kind of, there was no real chance Sri Lanka were going to win, but there was a sniff. So, but he came in, and he's one of those people, you watch him on TV and you just feel comfortable when you're watching him as an Englishman. Came out, a lot of confidence, just had a look, knocked it around. And him with Bairstow got us home comfortably the next morning to win by 7 wickets. So I think that's a big testament to him well. And will be definitely help him, and hope he goes well in a second one and can pencil him, get himself on the team sheet for the first test in Chennai.
Yeah, so that was the question I was coming to with Ollie Pope returning. Now, we don't know if he's fit enough for the first test, but if he is, you've got Stokes back, you've got Root, Zach Crawley, Ollie Pope, and now Dan Lawrence. So which one of them would you drop from the middle order?
I think Pope will miss out. I don't think he's fully fit. I think they're taking him on the tour, but he'll be past fit and join the squad at some point, maybe for the second or for the third test. But no, I think Lawrence will start at 5, and then Stokes at 6 with Butler at 7 as your wicket keeper in the middle order there.
That'll be interesting to watch. And again, for India, there's a similar problem in the middle order with Hardik Pandya returning to the squad.
Yeah.
Does Hardik Pandya play in 6 and Saha plays as keeper in India because of the spinning conditions, or does because of Pant's heroics he plays at 6 and Pandya just doesn't play?
I think there was there's this series that Ashwin does on YouTube wherein he was interviewing one of the coaches of India who mentioned that Pant has probably solidified his spot in the Indian lineup because of his heroics in Australia, and that's why I feel Pant's gonna be a long-term player for the wicketkeeper spot. Talking about Hardik Pandya, it's a mystery if he's coming in as an all-rounder or as a batsman, because there were rumors that he's probably worked harder on his bowling.
I'm pretty sure it's as a batsman, because I don't think his back's fit enough. He might be required to bowl 3 or 4 overs, but I don't think it's like as an all-rounder properly.
But as a batsman, I would say probably not gonna put him in the 11 for the first game itself. And if there is a player who's struggling to play in India on the pitches, on the Chennai pitches, then maybe Hardik Pandya comes in for the second match.
Yeah, I was listening to an interview with Bharat Arun, India's bowling coach, who mentioned that this is the series where Kuldeep Yadav makes his own. Because obviously Jadeja's still not fit, he's injured. Yeah. And India's expected to play 5 bowlers. I'm assuming Ishant Sharma and Bumrah will start as the 2 fast bowlers. Yeah. Ashwin will start as the first spinner, so that's 3. And then there are two more spots between Washington Sundar, Kuldeep Yadav, Akshar Patel, and Siraj. So it'll be interesting to see who India go with. And I think Washington Sundar will probably play at number 7, considering how well he batted in the series. And the fact that Jadeja's not around, I think Sundar will probably get another game, considering that RCB connection with Kohli as well. And I think the last spot could go to Kuldeep Yadav, going by that interview, unless he decides to play Siraj. But it'll be interesting to see who India go with as well. It's a problem many to have, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's actually a good problem to have, to be honest, because India actually set an example for every touring nation, that you need to have a lot of backup players in the squad, because otherwise you're going to be struggling with injuries. We were struggling to even field an 11 for the last match. Somehow some players passed the fitness test and they were put into the side. Even Washington Sundar was called in for the 4th test match.
Yeah, Mayank Agarwal and opener batted at 5. India just didn't have any batsmen. Yeah.
So that's a problem that we were having. I have to admit this, that I was laughing at the Pakistan squad when they had announced a 35-member squad, and I was laughing, why are they taking so many people for a tour? And now is when I realized that this was actually a good idea to do. And India and any other country now touring any other side should obviously learn from that and have a lot more backups, because it usually takes around 15 to 17 days to get a backup player into the squad to be in the 11, because 14 days quarantine, to get them from another country, to put them into a practice for like a couple of days, and then get them on the field for the match. It's going to be 15, 17 days after the tour is gone.
Yeah, so talking about backups, England have taken James Bracey as a backup. I don't know anything about him, but from what I've been reading, they really rate him highly. So can you tell us something about him, Greg? What does he do?
Yeah, put me straight on the spot. Thanks, Virat. Gloucestershire, again, another wicketkeeper batsman. He was involved in the West Indies and the Pakistan squads again during the summer here. Carried a lot of drinks again, I think. So we've definitely got some good drinks carriers. But no, quite talented. I think left-handed bat usually opens up. And was rumoured as a potential replacement if Burns or Sibley struggled against the West Indies or Pakistan. Obviously, they went all right last season. Again, I think he'll just be carrying drinks again, to be honest with you. But no, he's a talent and might get a go in. Well, I'm not sure if they're playing any warm-up games.
No, I don't think so. I think they go straight in. The first test starts on Feb 5th. So yeah, straight in.
So yeah, I'm sure he'll do fairly well, get 40 odd in the intra-squad game that they have before at some point. But no, I'd be very surprised if we see him. But maybe one for the future. He played quite a bit with the England Lions as well. So, but yeah, keep an eye out for him, see how he goes.
What about Worthy? Amir Singh Worthy, the spinner who's been asked to come with the squad. Yeah,
he's another young guy. I think he's maybe 21 or something.
He's 21.
He's come through the Surrey Academy. Again, Surrey have produced quite a lot of good players that we've got in the team at the moment. Sibley came through there before he went to Warwickshire. Burns obviously plays at Surrey. Pope as well. So yeah, he's another one of these young spinners that we've got, quite similar to Parkinson. He's in the squad. We'll get some good experience. Hopefully, he's been talking to the right people in Sri Lanka as well. But I think he'll be, and again, there's another reserve, but will be good experience for him, who maybe 3 or 4 years' time gets a go.
And Bess and Leach, the first two spinners England going to go with for the first test.
I would like to see Moeen Ali play, to be honest. I think it's a real shame that obviously he's contracted COVID somewhere along between flying here to Sri Lanka and has missed both of these tests, which is completely understandable. But I think he was going to be, should be a big part of England's plans in India. I know the last time we were there, he did go really well. He got 41 wickets.
Contract with RCB because he did so
Absolutely.
well.
Yeah. Absolutely. So, but I think he's got a couple of hundreds last time in India, averaged about 42. He's got, I think it's 41 of his test wickets are against India. Obviously he had that really good series in 2018 when India came to England. But I think he should be the frontline spinner, but whether he's got enough time and had enough time in his legs, obviously with the long COVID break, and then how he recovers from COVID will be something that they'll have to watch and monitor. But yeah, I think Leach will play, but whether they go with Bess or Ali will depend on Moeen's fitness, I think.
So do you think? Sorry,
go on, Abhimanyu.
Yeah, my point was, do you think that Dan Lawrence could be dropped for Moeen Ali?
I'm not sure they'd drop him for Moeen. I think Moeen's going to back down maybe 7 or 8. But I think Stokes at 5 leaves you a bit long in the tail. Butler at 6, and then if you drop in Lawrence, you want to play Ali, Bess, and Leach, or
no, maybe getting in another fast bowler there.
Seamer.
Yeah,
I think
it's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it is. Could be tricky. Could cost you the match if you don't go with the right level.
Absolutely, I'm sure it will. But 3.
You're learning from Michael Warner.
I was going with two seamers, 2 spinners, and then Stokes as your third.
I think that's the one
third seamer
as well.
No. But I've gone with James Anderson and Broad as the 2 seamers.
But Broad's rested for the first 2 tests, so he's not. Yeah, Broad's rested for the first 2 tests, which he wasn't happy about. If the newspapers are to be believed, he wanted to play all the tests against India, but he got rested for the first couple. I think Bairstow is back after the second test as well. Bairstow, Curran, and I've got it written here. Mark Wood are rested for the first 2, aren't they? So obviously Sam Curran's been contributing a lot to England over the last couple of years. And this is my last question before we do our predictions. Do you think Sam Curran will be a big miss in the first couple of tests?
I think Sam Curran is a player that makes something happen with the ball. I think he's one of those that there's never room for him in the team when he's out of the team, but when he's in the team, you can never take him out. I was surprised to see that he did get go in the second test here again in Sri Lanka. Obviously, he has done really well for Chennai in the IPL. Obviously, the games weren't in Chennai this year, but I think I wouldn't say he'd be missed because Stokes is coming back in, and I think he's a better all-rounder, obviously, than Curran is. And they've got very similar roles. But yeah, it would be nice to see him in the team, but I'm not sure you can squeeze them in if you're playing 2 spinners. I think he's probably be on the outside, and depends obviously how Stokes goes. But if he comes back, and I'd imagine he plays all 4 tests, so I don't think we'll see him in the squad unless it's a green seamer for the day-nighter at Ahmedabad. But
yeah, so okay, thanks Greg for telling us so much about the England team, and obviously it's been a great discussion. But last thing before we go, series prediction and a player to watch out for from each team. Your standout player from each team. Let's go with that. Start with you, Abhimanyu, then Greg, and then I'll give.
I would say probably Rishabh Pant. He's been in that kind of form that he's going to be the standout pick here too. I feel he's going to be playing all the test matches. And I would say 3-0 to India, probably 1 fair draw to England there. But 3-0 victory to India, and they qualify for the final of the World Test Championship.
And Greg, player to watch out for?
I think, well, you've picked an Indian player. I feel like I should pick an English one. But I was going to go Rohit Sharma. I think there's obviously a bit of pressure on him. But he does average something ridiculous, about 88 at home, with 6 of his test hundreds coming at home. So I think he's probably one to watch. There is a bit of pressure on him, obviously, coming back for those last 2 tests in Australia. Didn't go so well. So I think he's probably one to watch. But from an English point of view, I think either Lawrence, if he stays in the side when Pope comes back, he could be one to watch. Or Joe Root, I think he'll be England's main man if they're to challenge India, which I don't think they will. But if he gets runs, then that'll be key to any chance of what would be a famous series win. But I think England might nick the day-nighter. So I'll go 2-1 India, I think.
And from my end, I'll say, obviously, my favorite. It's more of a hope than a stand-up player. Cheteshwar Pujara, I'm going with him. He's by far my favorite player. So I'm going to name him every series. And from an English perspective, I'll go Ben Stokes because I think he can make the difference when you need a wicket after a long partnership, I think Ben Stokes coming on with the ball to bowl a few overs can make the difference for England. And I'll go with 2-0 India because I'm expecting one non-result in Chennai and one non-result in Ahmedabad. So 2-0.